Last week I got a chance to watch Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. And, full disclosure, I haven't always been the biggest fan of Christopher Nolan films. I certainly like the Dark Knight trilogy, but I'm a huge Batman fan, so that probably has a little something to do with it. But lately, last few movies I've seen, his editing style has bothered me a little bit. I do feel like he rushes through certain scenes, even dialogue scenes. He makes pretty long movies. Maybe that's why he kind of seems to edit certain scenes a certain way. But also, I find his music be oftentimes bombastic, and when he's not, when we're not hearing the score, we're hearing tension hooks, or this is what happens, in Oppenheimer, for example. I couldn't stand Oppenheimer. I was sitting in the theater for hours, and it was almost agony watching that movie. Just not really my cup of tea, his style. But it's Odysseus. I'm intrigued. I do love practical effects, and of course, Christopher Nolan is a champion of practical effects. So I was intrigued. So let me deal with the controversies first. I don't care that there's diversity in his cast. I'm a huge fan of Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh has almost always used diversity in his cast. I mean, the Shakespearean movies, his Poirot films, even Thor, Cinderella. I mean, he's always used diversity in his cast. I mean, if Branagh can do it, then why can't Christopher Nolan? And in particular, I think Zendaya was perfectly fine as Athena, especially when the movie goes into why we're seeing Zendaya as Athena. There's certainly more to that story. And Lupita Nyong'o as Helen. Famously, she's got the face that launched 1,000 ships. Well, that takes a unique beauty. Not just any beautiful woman, but it takes a unique beauty. And in the case of Lupita, she's an exotic beauty, and I think that's kind of appropriate. May not be, accurate to how Homer would have written it or did write it, but I get it. I get Lupita as Helen. And then we have Elliot Page. Now, Elliot Page, I think Nolan is a pretty stand-up guy here because obviously he cast Ellen Page in the movie Inception. And now, since the transition, it's got to be harder, or at least a little bit more difficult for Elliot Page to find work. So I think it's great that Nolan went with Elliot Page for this particular role that he plays in this film. And I got to tell you, Elliot Page really does a great job. Really great job. It's one of the most memorable performances, in my opinion, in the whole film. Now, while I'm talking about the cast, I'm a big fan of Matt Damon. I love the Bourne films. I loved his performance in Stillwater. I find him to be a natural performer. Those are always my favorite actors, the ones who don't do a lot of showboating with their performance, but they're more natural. And that's the way I see Matt Damon. Having said that, I do feel he's a bit miscast in the role of Odysseus. Now, I don't think he was the first choice from what I understand, and this might just be rumor, but I think I heard that Nolan asked Christian Bale. He may have asked Hugh Jackman, others to play Odysseus, and they may have turned him down, or they may have been busy doing something else. And he went with Matt Damon, and good for Matt Damon because we know this is going to be a big hit. In fact, it is a big hit. I'll say this about Matt Damon. He does the best he possibly can in what's clearly a miscast role. And he's fine. Like I enjoyed a lot of his work in this movie. In the case of Anne Hathaway, I feel like she's a bit over the top as Penelope. And it's hard for me to blame her too much for that because if she just played it straight as written, then her character would be kind of boring and doesn't seem to have a lot to do in this film. And so I think Anne Hathaway, when she read the script, she understood this, and so I think she didn't just want to. I think she felt she needed to make the most out of this role to try to make it interesting. Now, I also today just saw the movie The Return with Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche, and of course Ralph Fiennes is great as Odysseus. It's about Odysseus's return to Ithaca, not about all the adventures and all that, just his return to Ithaca. And Ralph Fiennes is fantastic and well cast as Odysseus, and so is Juliette Binoche. I mean, she is absolutely lived in as Penelope. And both Penelopes, Anne Hathaway and Juliette Binoche, they have this weaving mechanism. There's a lot more importance placed on the weaving mechanism in The Return than in the Nolan film. And Juliette Binoche looks like she's been weaving, using this machine for years. Like it's second nature to her. And so she really is very natural as Penelope. The Return, I have to say, is all about the performances. It's a good movie. It's well, I think it's well directed, beautiful cinematography, but the performances are far superior in The Return than they are in the Nolan film. And that also includes the character that Robert Pattinson plays in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. In The Odyssey, Robert Pattinson's character is so one-dimensional, so overtly villainous, but also cowardly, that he should have a mustache that he can twirl. That's how one note his performance is. Now I get it. All of these suitors that are waiting for Penelope to make her choice of new husband, they're all bad dudes. And they have to be bad so that when Odysseus comes back and he kills them all, there's some sense of justice and what have you. That's all well and good. But Nolan is known for kind of grounding these things in some sort of reality. But you can't do that and then also portray these guys as cartoonishly villainous. In The Return, the actor playing the same character as Pattinson, now I want to get his name right, Marwan Kenzari is 1,000 times more interesting as the character. What a knockout performance by that guy. Fantastic. This movie was 2 years ago. It's a shame that guy didn't get more attention, but that's a great performance. And it's a nuanced performance, a nuanced character. Here's the thing. We all know Robert Pattinson's a great actor. I can't wait for his movie Prime Time to come out, where he plays Chris Hansen. And I think he's going to be great in that. I don't fault him for this cartoonish performance in The Odyssey because it's clearly the fault of the screenplay. The screenplay doesn't give him any more than this overtly evil performance. Moving on from there. All the issues I have, there's a few editing issues, right? And there's a few moments. I three in particular. I'm not going to go into them because the video would be way too long. I know because I tried and the video was way too long. But there are a few instances where Nolan's directing and his editing rushes a few scenes that really didn't need to be rushed. Why do I recommend this movie though? And I do recommend this movie. I think it's a very, very good movie. Watching this film and the adventures of Odysseus really took me back to when I was a child and I was watching those old Sinbad films from the 60s and 70s. Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger and all that stuff. Those Ray Harryhausen films, like Sinbad is going up against these creatures, and it's sort of a, what do you call them, clay animation, whatever they were, and you know, the effects were kind of convincing when you're a little kid at the time you're watching them. And this film really brought me back to those type of adventures. But this time, you know, Nolan is using all practical effects to portray giants, to portray a cyclops, to portray a witch and her witchcraft. The scene with Samantha Morton, who gives a brilliant performance, the way they portray her transforming men into pigs is fantastic. It's and creepy, and it's something to behold. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. Yes, all the practical effects, everything that happens in terms of the adventures with Odysseus are great. Like I was absolutely captivated by all of the stuff involving Odysseus. The stuff involving Penelope, I think, was necessary and was fine. If I take issue with anything, it's the sort of separate journey, if you will, of Odysseus's son, portrayed by Tom Holland. Now, Tom Holland is fine in the role. I don't have any issues with Tom Holland. And I think all of his scenes in Ithaca, you know, with his mother, Penelope, and all that, and having to deal with the suitors, I think those are appropriate. And I know probably in the novel or in the book, the son probably goes off on these adventures. But Nolan likes to go from place to place and from one time to another time. He loves this nonlinear structure. I really feel like we could have scrapped the scenes where, you know, Tom Holland goes to see Menelaus and all that. We don't need that. It's just a distraction, and it's making the movie even longer. And if you remove that scene, but maybe don't speed through so many of the other little scenes, you know, take your time, in other words, and let other scenes breathe a little bit, then this movie could have been maybe 2.5 hours long, and achieve probably the exact same power that it already does, maybe even more. And I want to talk about the power. There's just something about this film. By the end of the film, there's some power behind it, and Nolan is pretty good at this. That you almost can't put your finger on what it is. But he pieces together a puzzle usually at the end of these films, and he makes us feel something. Somebody pointed this out to me the other day, that Nolan's goal is to make us feel something in these movies. And he's right. You know, I certainly felt something with Oppenheimer. I felt nauseous when I saw it. But in this case, I really liked it. I don't know what I felt at the end of the Odyssey, but I know I liked it. Nolan decides, and this might be a deviation from the book, perhaps, but it's important for Christopher Nolan to convey Odysseus's sort of guilt, remorse for things that happened during the fall of Troy. After all, his Trojan horse, that was his idea. And his Trojan horse is what led to really the murder of everyone in Troy, including women and children. And this at least haunts this movie version of Odysseus. This is where Athena comes in. This is where Zendaya comes in. And there's a great moment. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a great moment that involves Zendaya and Athena and the fall of Troy, and it's one of the sources of the power behind this film. So, I really had to shorten this review. As I said earlier, I tried a previous review. It took too long because there's a lot of stuff to get into, as there can be when it comes to Christopher Nolan. But I'll leave it at this. I do highly recommend this movie. I also highly recommend The Return for completely different reasons. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those. But Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is truly an event film. And if you haven't seen it already, just go out and watch it. And I thank you for watching this video.